Hello and welcome to Scrap Mechanic. Um, it's not really moving at full speed right now because I'm recording and my computer can't really handle Scrap Mechanic even when I'm not recording. Well, it can handle it pretty well. Like, I've got the graphics settings all the way down and it doesn't really bother me too much. Like, it's still lagging a bit, but it still lags a bit, but I don't really notice. However, right now while I'm recording, I definitely am noticing. I definitely am noticing. But anyways, ignoring that, you've got a garage. And in this garage, you got a piece of crap car. And you want to protect this piece of crap car because it's the only car you got. And you don't want to have to take the time to build a new piece of crap car. So, you make a door. That's what I did. Even though this is a single player world, but you know what? That means I'm alone here and I get bored, so I build doors. This is my very first door. And this is how you open the door. It would normally be a lot faster than that. But that is how you open the door. And it would normally be a lot faster, but the game is running very slow at the moment, so the door is also running very slow at the moment. So just keep in mind that normally this door would be about 2 or 3 times faster. But anyways, this is how you close the door. But now, you may be wondering, well, this switch is on the inside. What if you're on the outside and the door is closed? Well, you've got the buttons. There's 4 buttons. There's 2 on this side and 2 on the other side. However, the disadvantage of the button is the door will only be open while the button is being held down. Now, this actually does have an advantage, which is that the door will close behind you. And also, a button will work regardless of what's going on with any of the other buttons, where if I were to have a switch on all of these, in order for the door to be closed, all the switches would have to be switched off, which that would be annoying. Whereas with buttons, you don't have to worry about that, even though you do have to hold the button or to open it. And that's actually the reason why I put in the switch, and the reason why the switch is on the inside, because if you're outside, and I can demonstrate real quick, the game wants to actually run, but you know. We take our car very slowly out of the garage. And go to turn it around. And actually, at this point, this is when you would go back and you would flip the switch to close the door behind you if you're taking the car out of the garage, or whatever else you had stored in the garage and were trying to take out. So then you would take your car on a drive, go explore the world, go to the store, pick up some food. You never know. It's a world of opportunity. You can do whatever you like. But then, once you've done doing whatever it is you want to do, you manage to turn the car around at some point, and you come back up to your door. And now, this is a security door as well. You can't just ram your way in. It will not allow that. It's very secure. Even though you can just whip out your blocks and just delete the door in just a couple of clicks. But, you know, we don't think about that. We just assume that people will not do that. We'll assume that the people who are trying to steal your car are only going to be half jerks and will only steal the car if they can figure out how to open the door without breaking it. But anyways, you would then press the button. And this is actually another security measure because the person trying to open the door will have to sit here and wait until the door is open at least enough for them to run through. And then they have to run through. Then they also have to hit the switch and wait for the door to open fully. And then they can finally manage to bring something through the door, which, if they're trying to steal something, that's going to be a bit slow. You're probably going to be able to catch them long before they're gone. So then once it's open by the switch, you can pull your car in. And then you can hit the switch again, and the door will close. But wait, there's more, for this door has one last security feature, a locking mechanism. Once you hit that switch, and the block in there is finished moving, the door is now locked. There is nothing you can do to open this door without breaking it. Nothing has happened. Still, nothing has happened. And a neat little thing about the locking mechanism is, even if the door is already open, and you engage the locking mechanism, the door will automatically close. Now, you must be wondering, how is door made? Well, I can show you. By simply tearing open the wall. This is everything that has to do with the inputs for the door. These 5 little gadgets here are the different inputs. I can disable the lock real quick. Oh. That's right. When I unlock the door, it opens. it gets in the way. So if we then close the door so that we can see what's going on, these are the 5 points of input for opening the door. And this is how we take the 5 different ways of opening the door and have them controlling the one door. Because they are not actually controlling the door, they're controlling these things. And I can demonstrate by pressing this button here. It's actually turning that little guy there. If you didn't quite catch that, it was this guy here. He turned 180 degrees to point up, and then he was in the way of that sensor. And every single one of these, when they're triggered by either one of the 4 buttons or that switch, they'll turn 180 degrees up, and they'll be in the way of the sensor, triggering the sensor. Then this sensor will trigger this guy. And this here is the locking mechanism and also a reversing mechanism for this thing. And so when that sensor is activated, it'll trigger this guy, which will make this turn 180 degrees, so it's no longer in the way of that sensor. So that sensor will turn off, and the reason for that is because when the door is closed, it's actually in the on state. So in order to open the door, we need to turn it off. This over here is what actually controls the door itself. And so that over there is being controlled by this lower sensor here. So whenever this sensor is being activated, then the door will be closed. And that's why we need the reversing mechanism, because if none of the inputs are being turned on, then that sensor is not being activated. So we need to reverse it by having it set up here, where this is in its off state, activating that sensor. So therefore, when you press one of the buttons or flip the switch, one of these will turn on, which will turn the sensor on, which will cause this to turn on, which will turn that off, which will open the door. Do you get that? Okay. Now, this here is the locking mechanism. And what this guy does is he just turns down. And so now, whenever this is turned up, this will be turned down so the sensor is still activated. So if we activate the switch, as you can see over here, the switch is bound to this guy, which activates that sensor, which turns this guy up. But since we have the locking mechanism on, this is here still activating the sensor, so the door is still closed. But if we were to disable the locking mechanism, this will no longer be in the way of that sensor. The sensor will deactivate, the door will turn off, causing it to open. And that is how door work. And this is the basic arm here for the door. It's got a little arm here that turns 90 degrees, and this guy here turns 180 degrees, and then there's another hinge that actually connects to the door itself that has to turn another 90 degrees, and that basically creates the horse